All right. So I want you, wherever you're at right now, I want you to stop what you're doing and think about this question I'm going to ask you and really deeply think about it. So whether you're driving down the road right now, listening to this on your next sales appointment, or whether you're about to walk into a boardroom meeting to finalize the deal, heck, right now, maybe even a Zoom meeting to finalize the deal with the board meeting. Maybe you're at the gym, just running on a treadmill, wondering how your day is going to go, or you're about to pick up the phone to call another prospect. I want you to think about, what does it actually take? What does it really take, not talk, but take, to be a top 1% salesperson in your industry, the industry you're in right now, the salesperson who makes all the money, who gets any promotion they want. In fact, they turn down promotions they don't want. They have all the respect from management in the company. They have all the respect from ownership. Well, my next guest is going to answer that question for you. And let me give you a small taste of his background. He is the CEO and founder of a company called salesnexus.com. It's a leading CRM marketing automation and lead generation solution for sales teams anywhere from 10 people to 100. He's also the author of Inside Out Selling. We're going to dive into that a bit. A guide to growing and managing sales teams. And prior to founding his company, Sales Nexus, he spent 15 years building and leading sales teams selling multi-million-dollar, multi-year contracts to energy companies such as ExxonMobil, BP, Shell, Chevron. Very complex selling environment. Now, this long, complex selling environment gives him obviously a background and an understanding and a sense of the risk of misallocated sales time. Such a big thing now. His belief that business growth is the engine of human advancement has led him to serve as a mentor to students in the University of Houston's Wolf Center for Entrepreneurship. He's also the father of 3 beautiful children. You might see them in the background. And he's an avid sailor, hunter, and skier. That's a wide variety. When he's not growing his company or writing, he's probably planning his next adventure to somewhere you've probably never heard of. Please welcome to the show, Mr. Craig Klein. Craig, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Jeremy.
I've never heard somebody that was an avid sailor, hunter, and skier at the same time. We might have time to get into that.
Yeah.
So, hey, I'm excited to have you on here today. And I love talking about human behavior and how that applies to being a top salesperson, which a lot of times it applies different sales tools that salespeople and teams really need to have to really get to a next level in their business. So I'm pumped to have you on here. So let's do this. I want to dive right into your story and maybe give our listeners, let's say, a feel for your background and how you arrived at this point where you're an authority on sales and persuasion. Can you tell us a little bit more about your background and how this all started for you?
Sure, yeah. So I got into sales right out of college. I got my education in electrical engineering and found out I just kind of didn't like it. It wasn't exciting enough for me. So I got into sales kind of backwardsly, but was very lucky to work for some guys early in my career that were very organized and focused, and they kind of taught me the discipline of, prospecting and filling your funnel and all those real fundamental basics, right? And then long story short, I had some initial success, kind of rose up through the ranks in management in a couple of different companies and started managing, hiring and firing and training salespeople and all that good stuff. In the energy business, managing a sales team of around 15, 20 people. And this was during one of the big downturns in the industry. Okay. And so we were able to hire these geologists who had been laid off from the big oil companies, who had lots of relationships and really great technical knowledge about our products and services, but zero sales skills, right? Mm-hmm. So here I am trying to teach these guys how to sell and all those disciplines about prospecting and filling the funnel. Sure. I'm trying to teach these guys from scratch all those things I learned on the job, and quickly found out that I wasn't very good at teaching those things. It's one thing to do, it's another thing to teach.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So anyway, we were lucky enough to find a sales training company to come in and start teaching those guys. And they had a great methodology, and really, it was really perfect for these engineering mindsets that was on our team, right? Then, so we started to have some success with those guys.
Yeah.
And some of them more than others, of course.
Sure.
And what I started to realize is that there were some of the guys that just naturally had this, at the time I didn't have a word for it,
Right.
it was mysterious to me. They just naturally had this ability to really see inside of the customer and understand what their real core needs were.
I see. Mm-hmm.
And then that
Peeling
way,
the layers off the onion.
yeah, exactly. And they were so much better at qualifying opportunities, right? Because we're talking about, a deal at ExxonMobil might take a year, 2 years to do that deal.
Yeah.
We don't want to be sitting there banking on a $5 million deal for 2 years and then it evaporates, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So qualification is really key.
Yeah.
These guys just kind of knew,
Yeah.
this company needs what we have.
Sure.
There's a way for us to make a deal here.
Yeah.
It took me a long time really to start to understand what that skill that they were bringing to the table really was.
Sure.
But I think now it's what I call it is empathy. It's really being able to understand an individual and where they're coming from, or sort of organizational empathy as well.
Well, you got to be able to navigate in the organization effectively. You have to know what to do to get to the right decision makers, not just one decision maker. There's multiple decision makers, and you have to know the right questions to ask in that conversation to position your offer with the other decision makers that you might not have even have met, or maybe you won't meet them. There's a lot that goes into that. Now, I was on your website earlier. Tell us a little bit more about inside-outside selling, and who was this book really written for? Yeah,
so it's inside-out selling, and it's really all about that empathy that we just talked about. The most salespeople just see themselves as an information provider, not an information gatherer, right?
We call it product pushers.
Yeah, exactly. So what I really was trying to do was give salespeople a roadmap to start to develop that empathy.
Yeah.
Which seems kind of impossible, really, because there's no way in a given conversation to say, if I follow these 3 steps, I will have empathy, right?
Sure. Yeah.
You have to, it's more of a dance,
Well, you have to understand the psychology behind what selling even is. Selling is a being of service. Selling is not manipulating somebody and trying to push them into doing something that you want them to do, right? You have to learn how to become a problem finder and a problem solver, not a product pusher. There's a major difference in that.
Yeah.
I love that. Now, I want to roll into some of these questions that I wanted to ask you. I took some notes here. What's the most essential ingredient for a salesperson to really have success? Your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's empathy, and followed very closely by persistence.
Tell us a little bit more about empathy. Like, why is empathy so important, especially selling in a complex selling environment like you've come from?
Well, so I was trained, like I said, when we trained my energy sales team, they taught the salespeople a system for asking questions and uncovering pain, right? And then, like you were just saying, that's finding that problem and then finding a solution to the problem.
Sure.
Which is great, and it works pretty well. But to me, the challenge that salespeople face is that it's kind of unsustainable, right? After a while, it just seems like a grind. You've got to find a way to take some joy from that process, right? And to me, that's what it's all about. So I don't want to know, if you're my prospect, I don't want to just know what needs you have that I can help you with my products.
Yeah.
I want to know you as a person, what's going on in your life? How's your marriage? How are your kids? How can I help you there personally? How do I build a real relationship with you?
Well, and really how the problem's affecting them. Most salespeople ask what I call surface level questions, right? Came out in the 80s with books like Spin Selling, where it taught you needed to ask questions to find out their needs, logical based questions. Hey, Mr. Prospect, what keeps you awake at night? Or can you tell me 2 problems you're having, why you want to solve this? That's all good and great, but those are surface level questions. You're not peeling any layers back, right? So when you ask surface level questions, you get surface level answers back, logical answers back. And as we know, human beings, make purchase decisions on emotion, 100% emotion. That's just the brain studies prove that now. And they only justify with logic. So we have to learn, like you said, is maybe once we ask some of those surface questions, we have to go dig a little bit deeper, a lot deeper, right? And we're finding out the root cause of the problems. Like, what caused this problem and how is the problem affecting this person, even down emotionally, right? Because these problems could be affecting them where if the problem keeps happening, they could go out of business. And if they go out of business or their revenue goes down, maybe they can't pay for their son or daughter's college. Maybe they lose their home. Like it has a massive impact on their own personal lives.
Right.
And once you learn to ask those questions, they really attach to owning the problem themselves and wanting to solve it. And you're there to help them reach their objectives as well. It's not just about problem finding and solving. It's about how does your offer or what you're offering them get them to where they're wanting to go.
Right. Exactly.
100% right. Now, what do you think is the most overlooked opportunity for salespeople to scale up sales? Like, what's an overlooked opportunity that most people miss?
Well, every single business that we talk to, one of the things they're just not able to do because it takes a little bit more organization than most sales teams have is good lead follow-up and nurturing, So it doesn't matter what kind of industry you're in, one way or the other, you're spending a lot of your time building these new relationships, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes you disqualify a lead. It's not, I'm not going to sell you anything right now for various reasons. But that doesn't mean you want to just throw them over your shoulder and move on to the next guy, right? If you think about in any business, again, doesn't matter how the metrics of your funnel work, over the course of months and years, you're talking to so many different people that don't buy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how do you leverage all of that energy you just put into acquiring those relationships, building those relationships, and be there when they're ready to buy in the future?
Sure, yeah. Because they view you as more of the trusted authority, right? Who's there, who is an industry expert, rather than viewing most salespeople in that same industry probably as just another salesperson that's trying to sell something, right? There's a major difference in that, right?
Yeah.
What in your mind, what are some things salespeople do that really sabotage a sale? Like, just what do they do to shoot themselves in the foot?
Well, the number one thing is what we were talking about earlier, right? They just start pushing product, right? Instead of, and it's difficult, training lots of salespeople over the years, I see even the good ones struggle with it sometimes. Sure. The guys that have been in the field for 15, 20 years, they still, you get nervous. Sure. And you kind of go into show up and throw up mode, and it's a discipline.
You're right. And you really, what we train salespeople to do in companies is you really have to detach yourself from the expectations of making a sale and instead focus on whether there's a sale to be made in the first place. And when you let go of that attachment, you become more open to hearing, to feeling, and understanding their problems. And what solution you have to offer can really solve the problems for them the best. You become more of an active listener. And it takes discipline to do that. You're not born out of your mother's womb thinking that way. You have to learn how to think that way.
That's what inside out selling is really all about, is helping people show up in a sales meeting with the objective of, I just want to find a way to help this person. Yeah. Doesn't have to be a sale. Yeah. It might be, I'm going to tell them about a cool restaurant I went to last week, or a great vacation spot that my wife and I went to, whatever. Mm-hmm. I want to add something of value to this person's life today. Yeah. And man, at the end of the day, you're so much more fulfilled if that's your objective, Well, it's
almost when you walk into that meeting that, I'm not quite convinced I could even help you yet. I'm going to have to find out a little bit more about your situation and what you're using now to see if I can even help you in the first place. And when you ask those type of questions, you say those things, the sales pressure goes out of the room. And they're like, okay, this person gets it. They're there to see if we can help. And when you admit that you might not be able to help them, watch how your prospects react to that.
Right.
It's not like they're going to be like, oh, well, you get out of here. No, they become more open to you, right? And they tell you the truth, right? It's an easy flowing conversation. What do you think the best way is to start a conversation with a new lead?
Well, you want to offer them something of value, right? Give something to them. Build trust by doing something for them, rather than, hey, I'm here to find out how I can extract some money from you. It's I'm here to offer you something that I think will be helpful to you. And if you do that right, it helps you diagnose the problem as well. In other words, fundamentally, the way we teach our customers to do it is via some kind of an automated email drip, right, that offers valuable content. And so if I have 5 different PDFs or videos that I can send you that are kind of educational, by watching which PDF or video you watch or download, now I know more about the problem you have, and I can better focus our conversation.
What's a good question? I ask this to a lot of trainers and salespeople. What's a good question that a salesperson should be used when they really start out that conversation with the lead?
I mean, I would start with something very generic and simple, like, how can I help you today? Right? I mean, sure. It's probably going to be a little more nuanced than that based on the situation. It depends on
what you sell and the situation.
That's the objective, right?
Yeah. So it's just like if you're in a board meeting, maybe even on Zoom now, you're coming in and you're about to present something to the board. Maybe you've already had your first discovery call, but it's asking like, from your perspective, what would be a valuable way for us to spend the time together today? Exactly. And it's almost like you're getting permission for them to basically see if you can help them, right? People become very open to that. Now, how can you automate the process? I know you're a lot about automation. You've got your company that does a lot of great things with sales tools for salespeople. How can you automate the process and really stay engaged with a larger audience?
Yeah. So like we were talking about with the lead nurturing, right? All those people you talked to in the past that didn't buy, or somebody that bought something 6 months ago and hasn't spent any money since then, whatever.
Yeah.
You want some kind of automated drip going out that's offering them this useful content that if you download my white paper about cold calling, then now I know you have some concerns or needs about cold calling, and I might be able to help you in that area. Right. So the worst thing I can do is pick up the phone and try to sell you email marketing, right? Because that's not what you're interested in, right? You're interested in cold calling. So you want to automate your email drip, your marketing drip. Could be direct mail and email and all kinds of other things, but text messages. But you want to automate it so that every time the salesperson interacts with that customer, the valuable data that they're learning from that customer drives the messaging that customer is going to receive going forward. Yeah. Right. So that's what I see most companies doing wrong is you have, the marketing people are over here and they might have a little drip that they're doing, sure, but it's the same thing going out to everybody.
It's too generic is what you're saying.
That's right.
What happens when you make it personal to that company? Like on their end, what's the psychology behind what's going through your prospect's mind when it's more tailored to them? Like what's going on?
You just, you're there. I mean, the way I think about email marketing is as an individual receiving email, right? Yeah. What's your objective when you look at your inbox every day? You're kind of scanning through there to see, did my boss send me anything? Did my wife send me anything? Did my customers send me anything? And I got to do something with those. Everything else, I'm just looking for an excuse to delete it, right? So back to your question, you want to offer them something they're going to be glad they got, right? Because next time you send them something, they're going to be looking forward to it.
And I think so many salespeople make the mistake of just emailing these long-winded emails. And I'm just going to tell you as a business owner myself, if I see an email that's more than like 2 small paragraphs, I don't even look at it because I don't have time, right?
Right, exactly.
You really have to shorten it down and almost like ask, talk about, if it's a cold email, really about 2 to 3 problems that most people that would be opening the email know about in their industry, in their space, and maybe how what you do helps people solve those problems. But keep that in a few sentences. And when you do that and ask any question at the end, you're going to get way more responses than if you're like, here's what our solution is. And we work with this company and that company and blah, 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 blah. And like 6 paragraphs later, nobody's going to read that. They're just going to delete it. You got to stop the madness of the long emails.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's no different than a salesperson that shows up and starts pitching product, right? That's the same thing.
Yes. CEOs, VPs, sales managers, anybody you're trying to reach out to, heads of departments, you realize it's not just your email they're getting every day. They're probably getting 10, 15, 20, maybe more every day of the same type of stuff. So they're never going to read it unless you shorten it down.
That's right.
Now, how can you keep, I did want to get into this with you as well. How can you keep the funnel full with new leads and maximize sales? Well, really sales time spent with somebody who's really qualified, like a real qualified buyer.
Right. Yeah, that's the goal, right? You want to, as much as you can, automate the process of putting new warm leads in the funnel for your sales guys so that they're spending their time building these relationships with people that are really qualified opportunities, right? Yeah. That's how you're really going to turn the dial and scale things up efficiently. So the way you do that is, number one, you got to nurture all the past leads, right? Yeah. Stay in touch with them, just like we're talking about.
Yeah, make it personalized, right?
Those emails that you're sending out to nurture those customers should demonstrate your empathy, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. By offering them things of value in their world. But then also you got to look at, okay, who's all the past leads that we've had and which ones have bought, and let's analyze those. Let's say, what industries are they in? What titles? How many employees? How much revenue? Whatever other criteria really make your sweet spot, outline. And let's build a bigger list in that industry. And then go back and do the same thing. Let's take that new list of potential customers and send them valuable content that if they interact with it, that's them raising their hand and saying, hey, I might be worth a sales call, right? That works every time it's tried, believe it or not. What we see, though, is people just kind of can't get things organized and automated enough to do it consistently so that they can really count on it.
What happens when they don't, though? Like, what's the consequences if they don't do that?
Well, the salespeople are, you have this pipeline in sales that looks like this, right? You're prospecting for 1 month, and then the next month you're closing. And then the month after that, you got nothing in your pipeline, and so you're not closing.
And you're dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. How can you build a list of targeted customers that include emails and mobile numbers? Let's talk about that. I know you've discussed it a little bit, but how can you do that?
So it's been crazy. We live in a crazy world, right? For these last few months. But what we've seen is so many companies struggling with, number one, just salespeople working from home. And most importantly, if you were relying on trade shows or your salespeople just got in the car and drove around and knocked on doors and stuff like that, what do you do now, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Even if that's not a problem for you, a lot of your salespeople had your customer's office phone number, but that's not working anymore, right? You got to know the guy's mobile number. Now you can't even get him on the phone, right?
Sure.
So it's a huge impediment to doing business in this new world.
100%.
So we've been lucky enough. For the last year or so, we've been working with a partner, rampedup.io, that we just love.
Yeah.
Because you define the industry and the title and the size of company and all the other criteria, and they give you an email that's valid. They validate those emails and make sure they're going to work, right?
Right.
And they give you LinkedIn profiles and other really cool stuff like that can be handy for salespeople. But also the magic ingredient is they have the mobile numbers too.
Really?
So,
okay.
So what we've seen, a lot of our customers will take, I already got my list of customers that I need to go after. I just don't have their mobile number. So we can run that into Ramped Up and add the mobile number to your list. So now your salespeople can call those people.
Really? Okay.
You already have a relationship with.
That's a valuable tool. Now, I want to ask you this question, and I always ask everybody this. What's one question a salesperson should be asking their prospect to build urgency in the sale? Like, what's one question salesperson needs to be asking their prospect that helps the prospect think about the consequences of not solving the problem?
Right. Yeah. Well, basically so what happens if we do nothing, right? What happens if we don't solve this problem?
I like that. Why do you ask that? Like, what's behind that? Like, what's the psychological impact when you ask that question to a prospect?
Well, they start to take ownership of the consequences of not acting, right?
Yeah.
And that's motivating.
Yeah. John, I mean, what are the possible ramifications if your company doesn't do anything about this? Right.
Right.
So that's a good question. I love that. All right. So, hey, this was a great interview. Do you have any final thoughts or advice for our listeners?
Well, what I would say is that in the near term, while everything's still crazy in this world, what I would really focus on is make sure you got your email list organized. Collect everything from your salespeople, get new emails, whatever you have to do. Make sure you can reach out to customers via email. You may also want to add mobile numbers to that too, because then you can also text them, which can be very powerful.
Yeah.
And then start reaching out to them. Don't be shy. I see a lot of sales organizations are really scared of offending their customers with these automated messages. Don't be shy. Send out, as long as you're being helpful and that's the spirit of what you're sending, your customers are going to be glad to do it.
Yeah, because your prospects have problems, right? You have a solution to solve those. If you don't learn the right skills to get them to purchase your solution, then it's really up to you because they just stay in status quo and nothing ever changes for them. So it's really your responsibility to learn the right skills to help them solve their problem and really get their objectives, like get results from what they're purchasing. 100%. Now, where can our listeners learn more about you and your training?
Go to salesnexus.com and we have some webinars that we've done recently where we're talking about how to build this email list and start your first nurturing campaign that are really super helpful. And you can also start a free trial of our platform there.
I love that. So everybody, I want you to go to, because this is really key that you have these tools to really stay organized with your emailing, with your list, with your pipeline. Go to salesnexus.com. You can opt in, I think, there. You can watch some webinars, opt in to get like a free trial. Definitely do it. You want to stay organized, especially right now with what's going on, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Craig, enjoy Houston. Thanks for being on. It was a pleasure. We're going to have you on soon.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Appreciate the opportunity. It's been a lot of fun.
Talk to you soon.
Now, if you're serious about joining the top 1%, I mean the top 1%, and you want to experience more training content just like this, click the links right over there. Right over there, they're exactly what you need to see next. You see, I release new episodes featuring top salespeople and sales authorities, multiple six-figure, high six-figure, even seven-figure earners. And if you're new here, do yourself a favor and smash that subscribe button right below, and join our new Facebook group, Sales Revolution. You see, it's free, and there's a link in the description below just for you. We put it there for you. Finally, I make posts on Facebook and Instagram each and every day with more tips and training. So be sure and follow me and turn on your notifications. So make a comment in the first 7 minutes to any of my latest posts, share this episode, and there's a very real chance that you're gonna win some killer prizes. And here's the thing, don't sit on the sidelines. Don't be like everyone else. Get into the game. Join the sales revolution. Stay active, get involved, learn the right skills, and we will show you how to take your life and income to a level that most only dream about.